Hey guys, unless you live under a rock, you probably already know about the Olympic boxing controversy that's been spreading like wildfire. A lot of people say there are men in women's sports, other people say they are not men, they're women. There's a lot of noise out there, but what is the truth? Let me give you a very quick update. It all started when Algerian boxer Imani Khalif went up against Italian Angela Carini, who stopped the match in just 45 seconds, crying and saying she had never been hit that hard. Many people went on social media and said that she's trans and that she's a man just hitting women. I myself made a video as well, not saying that she's trans, but just saying that she is a person who claims to be female, but who tested with XY chromosomes.
We wanted two tests, so there's two tests required, not one, but two tests. On the 17th of March 2023, both boxers were asked to take a further blood test. That happened, and on the 23rd of March, the results came through, and it demonstrated the chromosomes that we refer to within the technical competition rules that make both boxers ineligible.
And I said that it is not fair for people who identify as women, but who have XY chromosomes compete with women who have XX chromosomes. Was I right? Was I wrong? Well, recently, a lot of people, and Imani said she is a woman. And she was a woman from birth. Her dad also gave photos of her being a little girl. And it says so on her passport. Imani herself said that the criticism she received over misconceptions regarding her gender harms human dignity, in her own words. And she asked for the bullying to end. Now, just so we're clear, I'm not condoning bullying here at all. There are some people who are very harsh towards each other. Well, it should be at the organizations behind them understanding and seeing the whole picture. But, there also needs to come a time where we try to push out feelings just a little bit, and we don't just hate each other, but we look at the facts. Imani also said in her own words, "I send a message to all the people of the world to uphold the Olympic principles and the Olympic Charter, to refrain from bullying athletes because this has effects, massive effects." But that is the problem, because not everyone agrees with the IOC's Olympic principles. It is what is the whole problem here, actually, because they do not want to do gender tests. But that might actually be the only thing that's going to clear up this whole mess, because a lot of people say she's a woman, other people say, well, she's not. And I have to agree, some people have been too rude to Imani without having all the information and not looking at the real issue, which is the obvious difference between the IBA and the IOC. Now, as a Christian, I know we should not judge people unfairly, right? Unrighteously, but we should judge righteously all things. We should love all people, but we should also judge between what is right and what is wrong. And when we look at this objectively, we see there's a lot of people who are just unhappy because of the way the IOC is handling this whole thing. They do not agree with the Olympic principles, who Khalif says we need to uphold, and that is the whole issue here. Because their definition of what a woman is goes against the IBA, the International Boxing Association, that disqualified Khalif and other contestants in 2023 because they found XY chromosomes, male chromosomes, when they were tested. And that does give boxers an advantage over females with only XX chromosomes.
When we did the test at the World Championships, the test showed that these were men. It's sad when we shout to the whole world that we are for gender equality and the protection of women, and then they simply destroy women's sports. We must not allow this to happen. If we remain silent now, then later it will become normal.
So the real issue is this: it does not matter how people are raised or what it says on their passport, the technical stuff. What matters is when they do go and they compete or want to go and compete, there needs to be tests so that people can clearly see the evidence and know, okay, are there XY chromosomes or XX? If you have XY chromosomes, it is unfair to compete against other people with XX chromosomes. So it is about fairness. Khalif then went on to compete against Hungarian boxer Anna Luka, and after beating her, Khalif shouted, "I am a woman." But you see, just saying that in this world now where the woke community says, well, you can identify as everything, now people want evidence. They want to know, are you a real woman? Because a lot of people believe that there is a real definition of a female human being. And other people believe you can just identify as anything, a pink unicorn if you want to. Taiwanese boxer Lin Yu-ting, who was also tested as having XY chromosomes, has also faced criticism. Both of these boxers have made it to the semi-finals, which makes matters worse. Because people feel it is not fair. Especially when the IOC sees no problem with it and do not want to do gender testing. So the real issue is gender rules and regulations in boxing. That is what this is really about. And the problem is that the IBA and the IOC, they see these things very differently. So what are the facts? Well, the IBA tested the boxers and found XY chromosomes and informed the IOC before the Olympics. So a lot of people say, you see, they knew about this. So why didn't they do anything about it? How did they react to this? Well, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, labeled the IBA's testing as flawed, but also decided not to test the competitors.
On that, there is consensus. Scientifically, this is not a man fighting a woman.
Oh, really? There's scientific consensus now? Really? Then why were the pair who have XY chromosomes, according to the president of the International Boxing Association, why were they in 2023 thrown out of the Women's World Boxing Championship for failing gender eligibility tests?
So personally, I believe that the IOC, they're the ones that's causing all of this drama. Because first of all, they say that the International Boxing Association, that their tests were flawed, but then they don't do their own tests. So it's like saying, let's say your child, right? You get results from somewhere and it says that your child is on drugs. Your child gets home and you're like, hey, are you on drugs? And then they say, well, no, I'm not. And then you ask them, well, let's go and do tests. So you want to do your own test, right? You want to make sure. And then they say, well, I'm not going to do that. So then you immediately think, but they are lying. They're hiding something. This is the same thing. In fact, the IBA just had a recent press release because the media asked them to. Check it out.
So contrary to what was discussed in the conference at the weekend, the IOC have received this information. And clearly for us, the interesting situation here is that whilst the IOC have had that information previously, they haven't done anything with it. We had the response and they haven't taken that forward because they rely on their own criteria, which is based against, I believe, and what I'm hearing is the passport to enter the competition.
Now, many people called for the IOC to test the boxers, and they did not want to, and they still do not want to. The IOC chairman, Thomas Bach, defended Khalif and Yu-ting, saying they are women. So this just leads people to think that their definition of what a woman is very different from the International Boxing Association and normal people for that matter. You know, when the Italian boxer lost, the IBA actually paid her money because they felt it was unfair. Because Angelina Carini, who lost against Khalif, in only 45 seconds was crying and she didn't believe it to be fair. Now some say it is a conspiracy theory and they, the IBA, wanted her to lose the match and make a scene. No one really knows, but Carini did apologize because of the way she lost the match and said she didn't. I think it's just because of politics. And a lot of people say that she was pressured by the IOC to do it, but no one really knows. This is just an ongoing battle with a lot of puzzle pieces. Some people also went on social media and posted images and videos where it looks like Khalif adjusted the private parts. So these kind of images and videos, it just adds up to it that the IOC people think that they are hiding things because they do not want to do tests. And they believe it is okay for women with XY chromosomes, people who say that they're women with XY chromosomes, will fight against women with just XX chromosomes. Because if it was not okay, then they would have done the tests. I also think the way the Olympic organizers opened the Olympic ceremony with the LGBTQ community mocking God and Christianity at the Last Supper makes all of this even worse. So I believe that these boxers are not trans, but if they are what some people call them as intersex with XY chromosomes, then it is still not fair for them to compete with women with XX chromosomes. And that's what the I stands for in LGBTQIA+. It's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, intersex, and asexual. So in a nutshell, all of this is because these boxers were disqualified. They did not meet the eligibility. I struggle to say that word. Eligibility, there we go. Tests at the International Boxing Association, but now they are allowed at the Olympics to compete with women with XX chromosomes. Now some people say it is unfair to be so outspoken against these competitors in women's sports with XY chromosomes. And others would say it is also unfair against women with only XX chromosomes. No matter how you look at this, people's feelings will be hurt. There will be controversy as long as the IOC does not change their rules. Because the issue is when we take feelings out of it and just look at the facts, XY chromosomes do give a person more advantages. The same boxer, irrespective of their skill, will be bigger, faster, and stronger compared to if they only had XX chromosomes. And that is unfair. So personally, I believe the IOC actually created this whole wildfire, even if a lot of it wasn't intentionally, but just because of the way they handled it, and even the way they handle it now. I mean, what did they think was going to happen if they let people think that there are people claiming to be women with XY chromosomes competing against women with XX chromosomes? What did they think was going to happen? Especially if they say, well, that's what it says on their passport, and we're not going to change our rules, and we're not going to do any tests. So what should be done? Personally, my opinion is, in sport, you need fairness. So people with XY chromosomes need to compete with people with XY chromosomes. And then the XX and the XX, they can compete against each other. Am I a bit naive, or is that fair? I also think some of these boxers must be handled with love and understanding, because we just do not have all the facts, especially on how they were born, grew up, and what they truly believe of themselves. Some of them might grow up years thinking that they are women, like Caster Semenya in South Africa, where I come from. And then only to find out, hey, I have XY chromosomes, so what should I do now? And they've already invested all that time and energy to really be successful in sport. And now suddenly they might be struggling with identity. And one thing they really do not need is a lot of people being rude on social media. Instead, look at the organizers, the people that's creating all of these events. So I think those of you putting pressure on these athletes should stop and instead put your pressure on the IOC, the IBA, or similar companies who know their actions will cause outrage, and I think, personally, it is very evil. Ask yourself this very simple question. Why would the IOC put athletes, these athletes with the XY chromosomes, in positions knowing it will create all of this conflict? Why would they do that in the first place? I believe it would be simple to do blood tests on gender and then let the same genders compete against each other. Then all contestants, as they start a sport, will know that this is to be expected. Then everyone will feel it is fair and calm down. I would love to hear your comments. What do you think? Maybe you have more information on this than I do. Never forget, life is short, so do not waste yours. Cheers, guys.